Welcome back to CVI News Network. I'm Linda Forsyth, and today we're going to do part 2 of the video that I had put out yesterday, showing that we are headed for a new type of D-Day, And I think, again, as you continue to listen to this, this is, again, up for discussion. This is not the be-all, end-all. I am just giving you some reminder quotes and tips and clips and situations that you probably have forgotten about, just to remind you that things are going on behind the scenes, and the confusion and everything that is going on is purposeful on both ends, because you think you're confused. It's going both ways, and it really is a completely different type of war. Everything is different in our lives, falling apart, and I think it's also meant to happen that way because what we have been living, for the most part, has been a lie in just about everything that we've been led to believe and shown, and how we conduct our lives and so on. So maybe it needs to be torn down to do a reset, but you decide. Okay, I promised you yesterday that I was going to discuss with you a couple of things that I think we've all forgotten, but we all have been born with, and we know that it's there. We just have been turning it off. And that's called situational awareness. Those of you in the military know exactly what I'm talking about. If you are out in the wild and you have a gut instinct about something, you're being watched, or you just feel some things that are going on. We were given that for a reason. Okay, it's God's gift. It's helping us to be aware of our situation, situational awareness. It's a survival tool. And it has been purposely, slowly, subtly, over time, been weaned, or at least attempted to be weaned out of us. So most of us don't use it. If you are out in the wild and you just know, you just have a feeling, you see some rustling in the grass that's close by, and maybe the wind changes a little bit, and you smell something that is not right, and you just know that you are in danger. But then something in your head says, ignore it, it's nothing. You're imagining things. Oh my God, you're paranoid. Just go back to eating your grass. How well would that keep you alive in the wild? Okay, well, in today's world, that pretty much is what's going on. If you have a gut feeling, or you see something with your own eyes, and someone's saying, yeah, you're looking at it wrong, that's not what's happening. Or, you saw what went on, January 6th in Washington, D.C. It was definitely an insurrection. It was a huge riot, and all these horrible things happened. But yet, if you were there and you said, that's not what I saw, but you're ignored, that's called gaslighting people. Along with anything and everything that you see, even if you show proof in a court of law, and it's ignored. You didn't see that, or that proof isn't acknowledged, or it isn't, brought up, let alone in the news and everything else. Gaslighting over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Till you just like the movie Gaslight, after a while, you think you're starting to go crazy, and you're being bullied and saying and told and everything else that you just are a conspiracy theorist. And then pretty soon, after you're continuously beat down by the other quote unquote useful idiots who have been also gaslit but have fallen, are the ones that are even helping the entire thing become further ingrained in your head. There are certain things in situational awareness we need to remind ourselves. If you see something, you have a gut feeling about something, we all know something's not right, right? I mean, you're not crazy. It's obvious. This has all been part of the plan. Not our plan, their plan. All been part of the plan, along with many, many, many other things of making you completely, totally, absolutely dependent on certain situations. Because if those things are pulled away, you become so attached and needy for it, you're willing to do anything to keep it. Your job, your house, your way to make a living, your reputation. You know, I could go on and on and on. So it's like, if you don't do certain things in a certain way, it's going to be taken away. That's what a lot of things that are happening in certain Asian countries that we all know about. It's called, what is it? Social credit. You don't have the right social credit, you don't get to live very well. You have to beg for what you want. And you have to live off of other people's charity until finally they find other uses for you. That's what's going on. Well, I'm going to read a small part out of this book. Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper, Bill Cooper. If you have not read this book, it's thick. There's a lot to it, but I highly recommend you do it. This was actually written in 1988. Okay, that's important. So to give you a little bit of the background here, Bill Cooper was Naval Intelligence briefing team member, and he reveals information hidden from the public. The information was kept in a top secret government files since the 1940s. Cooper unveils the truth as he writes about the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the war on drugs, the secret government, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to skip down. It says, in 1988, Bill decided to talk. Due to events then taking place worldwide, events that he had seen plans for back in the early 70s. Afterwards, he correctly predicted the lowering of the Iron Curtain, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the invasion of Panama. All Bill's predictions were on record well before the events occurred. Bill was not a psychic. His information came from top secret documents that he read while working with the intelligence briefing team and from over 17 years of thorough research. And it's a fascinating book. So there's no way I'm going to be able to go through all this, but there's a couple of things I was going to bring up to you. Now, he reworded this part of the book. I don't know if you can see it, or maybe it's backwards. Okay, he reworded the title. The real title is Top Secret: Silent Wars for Quiet Wars. And he renamed it the Illuminati's Declaration of War upon the People of America. Bill Cooper writes, I read top secret documents which explain that silent weapons for quiet wars is a doctrine adopted by the policy committee of the Bilderberg Group during its first known meeting in 1954. A copy found in 1969 was in the possession of Naval Intelligence. The following document, dated May 1979, was found on July 7th, 1986, in an IBM copier that had been purchased at a surplus store. Okay, so I'm debating how to best do this. This is pretty much a publication of welcoming different individuals into the group, an introductory programming manual, operations research technical manual. It states, welcome aboard. This publication marks the 25th anniversary of the Third World War, called the Quiet War, being conducted using subjective biological warfare fought with silent weapons. This book contains an introductory description of this war, its strategies, and its weaponry, written in May 1979. Security. It is patently impossible to discuss social engineering or automation of a society, example, the engineering of social automation systems or silent weapons, on a national or worldwide scale without implying extensive objectives of social control and destruction of human life, example, slavery and genocide. This manual is in itself an analog declaration of intent. Such a writing must be secured from public scrutiny. Otherwise, it might be recognized as a technically formal declaration of domestic war. Furthermore, whenever any person or group of persons in a position of great power and without full knowledge and consent of the public uses such knowledge and methodology for economic conquest, it must be understood that a state of domestic warfare exists between said person or group of persons and the public. The solution of today's problem requires an approach which is ruthlessly candid and no agonizing over religious, moral, or cultural values. You have qualified for this project because of your ability to look at human society with cold objectivity and yet analyze and discuss your observations and conclusions with others or similar intellectual capacity without a loss of discretion or humility. Such virtues are exercised in your own best interest. Do not deviate from them. Okay, so Bill Cooper then makes a note. I'm going to move on from there. Historical introduction. I'm not going to read all of this. Silent weapon technology has evolved from operations research, OR, a strategic and tactical methodology developed under the military management, Eisenhower, in England during World War II. The original purpose of operations research was to study the strategic tactical problems of air and land defense with the objective of effective use of limited military resources against foreign enemies, example, logistics. Okay, it explains exactly what it's talking about with the historical introduction. This is in the book, Behold a Pale Horse, and I am starting on page 36 for those of you that want to look this up later. Okay, going on to the next page, I'm skipping over quite a bit of this. It's talking about high-speed data, computerized data processing systems are necessary, which could race ahead of society and predict when society would arrive for capitulation. Is this why they're moving things ahead so fast? Because they lost 4 years with Trump being in office? Something to think about. Relay, remember how far back this was written. Relay computers were too slow, but the electronic computer invented in 1946 by J. Presper Eckert and John W. Maltschy filled the bill. The next breakthrough was the development of the simplex method of linear programming in 1947 by the mathematician George B. Dantzig. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead some more because they're talking about computers that they had back then that could predict when society would arrive for capitulation back then. They have that ability. I'm skipping over quite a few paragraphs. Immediately, the Rockefeller Foundation got in on the ground floor by making a 4-year grant to Harvard College, funding the Harvard Economic Research Project for the study of the structure of the American economy. 1 year later, in 1949, the United States Air Force joined in. In 1952, the original grant period terminated and a high-level meeting of elite Illuminati was held to determine the next phase of social operations research. The Harvard project had been very fruitful, as is borne out of the publication of some of its results in 1953, suggesting the feasibility of economic social engineering. Studies in the structure of the American economy, copyright 1953 by Wassily Leontief, International Sciences Press. Engineered in the last half of the decade of the 1940s, a new quiet war machine stood, so to speak, in sparkling gold-plated hardware on the showroom floor by 1954. It talks about all the various different things of what this machine looked like, The Quiet War was quietly declared by the international elite, which is the Bilderberg Group. Look up what the Bilderberg Group is. If you don't know what it is or you've never heard of it, please look it up. It is a thing. It's another, it's for the elite. It's like a secret society. They meet once a year, the elite of the elite from around the world, pretty much deciding our fates. Okay. Although the silent weapon system was newly exposed 13 years later, the evolution of a new weapon system has never suffered any major setbacks. Okay, I'm going to skip over that and I'm just going to read another 3 paragraphs and then I'm done. I'm going to have a discussion. Political introduction. In 1954, it was well recognized by those in positions of authority that it was only a matter of time, only a few decades, before the general public would be able to grasp and upset the cradle of power, for the very elements of the new silent weapon technology were as accessible for a public utopia as they were for providing a private utopia. Hope you caught that. I'm going to read that last sentence again. Before the general public would be able to grasp and upset the cradle of power, for the very elements of the new silent weapon technology were as accessible for a public utopia as they were for providing a private utopia. These people are going for a private utopia and getting us out of the way. The issue of primary concern, that of dominance, revolved around the subject of the energy sciences. Energy is recognized as the key to all activity on Earth. Natural science is a study of the sources and control of natural energy. And social science, theoretically expressed as economics, is a study of the sources and control of social energy. Both are bookkeeping systems, mathematics. Therefore, mathematics is the primary energy science, and the bookkeeper can be king if the public can be kept ignorant of the methodology of the bookkeeping. Okay, this next paragraph, please listen very carefully. All science is merely a means to an end. The means is knowledge. The end is control. The end always justifies the means. Beyond this remains only one issue: who will be the beneficiary? In 1954, this was the issue of primary concern. Although the so-called morals issue was raised, in view of the law of natural selection, it was agreed that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence. Such people are beasts of burden and stakes on a table by choice and consent. Boy, I'll tell you, I want to frame this and put this out there. Consequently, in the interest of future world order, peace, and tranquility, it was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public with an ultimate objective of permanently shifting the natural and social energy, parentheses, wealth, of the undisciplined and irresponsible many into the hands of the self-disciplined, responsible, and worthy few. In order to implement this objective, it was necessary to create, secure, and apply new weapons, which, as it turned out, were a class of weapons so subtle and sophisticated in their principle of operation and public appearance as to earn for themselves the name silent weapons. In conclusion, the objective economic research is conducted by the magnates of capital banking and the industries of commodities, goods, and services is the establishment of an economy which is totally predictable and manipulatable. In order to achieve a totally predictable economy, the low-class elements of the society must be brought under total control. Example, must be housebroken, trained, and assigned a yoke and long-term social duties from a very early age, before they have the opportunity to question the propriety of the matter. In order to achieve such conformity, the lower class family unit must be disintegrated by a process of increasing preoccupation of the parents and the establishment of government-operated daycare centers for the occupationally orphaned children. The quality of education given to the lower class must be of the poorest sort, so that the mote of ignorance is isolating the inferior class from the superior class, and it remains incomprehensible to the inferior class. With such an initial handicap, even bright lower class individuals have little if any hope of extricating themselves from their assigned lot in life. This form of slavery is essential to maintaining some measure of social order, peace, and tranquility for the ruling upper class. So we're basically being groomed and trained over generations, little by little, subtly, because if it was done quickly, it would topple the apple cart. People would see it, they would revolt. Although they admit here that eventually people will start to catch on, but it has to be, their ideas and thoughts has to be implemented to such a degree that when people do start to catch on, there's enough things in place that gives them limited resources to get out. In other words, the cage door is slamming shut. I'm going to skip over this and go to one part that was just chilling. Here it is. It's called a short list of inputs. The questions to be asked by the elites are what, when, where, how, why, and who. Okay, this is questions that they need to have about every single one of us. Okay. General sources of information can be obtained by telephone taps. This is on page 53. Telephone taps, surveillance, analysis of garbage, and behavior of children in a school. Standard of living of what they, the regular people, the middle class, whichever, living by. What is it? What type of food do they eat? Their clothing, shelter, transportation. What are their social contacts? Telephone, itemized record of calls, family, marriage certificates, birth certificates, etc. Friends, associates, etc. Memberships in organizations, political affiliation. Is all this documented about everybody here? Okay, and here's the personal paper trail. What are personal buying habits? Example, personal consumer preferences. Checking accounts, credit card purchases, tag credit card purchases, the credit card purchase of products bearing the UPC, which is the Universal Product Code. What about their assets? Checking accounts, saving accounts, real estate, business, automobiles, safety deposit at banks, stock market, business. What are their liabilities? Creditors, enemies, see legal, loans, consumer credit, government sources. Okay, in other words, the government sources they're putting down here are actually ploys. Welfare, Social Security, USDA surplus foods, doles, grants, subsidies. In other words, principles of this ploy, the citizen will almost always make the collection of information easy if he can operate on the free sandwich principle of eat now, pay later. Government sources by way of intimidation. Internal Revenue Service, OSHA. Census, etc. Other government sources, surveillance of the US mail, habit patterns, in other words, programming, strengths and weaknesses, activities, sports, hobbies, etc. See legal, fear, anger, etc. Crime record, hospital records, drug sensitivities, reaction to pain, etc. Psychiatric records, fears, angers, disgust, adaptability, reactions to stimulus, violence, suggestibility or hypnosis, pain, pleasure, love, and sex. Methods of coping or of adaptability behavior, consumption of alcohol, consumption of drugs, entertainment, religious factors, influencing behavior, other methods of escaping from reality. Payment modus operandi, their MO, pay on time, etc. Payment of telephone bills, energy purchases, electric, gas, water purchases, repayment of loans, house payments, automobile payments, payments on credit cards. Political sensitivity, what are their beliefs, contacts, positions, strengths, weaknesses, projects, activities, legal inputs, behavioral control, excuses for investigation, search, or employment of force to modify behavior. In other words, court records, police records, driving record, reports made to police, insurance information, anti-establishment acquaintances. Then we go to national input information, business sources via the IRS, etc., prices of commodities, sales, investments in stocks, inventory, production tools, and then banks and credit bureaus, credit information, payment information, miscellaneous sources, polls and surveys, publications, telephone records, energy and utility purchases, short list of outputs, allocates sequence of allocates opportunities, destroys opportunities, controls the economic environment, controls the availability of raw materials, controls capital, control bank rates, control inflation of the currency, controls the possession of property, controls industrial capacity, controls manufacturing. And this list goes on and 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 on. Controls advertising, controls media, controls material available for TV viewing, disengages attention from real issues, engages emotions, creates disorder, chaos, insanity, controls design of war probing tax forms, controls surveillance, and so on and so on. So our entire lives were a written book, every single one of us, emotionally, physically, psychologically, everything you like, you don't like, your weaknesses. Basically, they know you completely, totally, absolutely inside out. Now they have the facial recognition, and anything and everything that we do, we have been putting out there to them. All right. Reason I'm bringing this up to you is you don't think they know how you work? You don't think they know what scares the hell out of you? Do you think they not know how to manipulate in every way, shape, form possible, and the ones that they can't are overrun by the other population? Well, reminder, they did say that they knew that there was going to be a tipping point where people, it was like a fine line, where people are going to capitulate. In other words, do exactly everything they're supposed to do. And we are the last line in this obtainment of society. If America goes, the world goes. No place else to run to. It's the one thing that has been holding them back. You want to keep your job, you do what you're told. You want to lose your job and you walk off and you go somewhere else, then in some way, shape, or form, you're going to be dependent on something, because the way the system and the society is set up right now is you are dependent. And any money you get in needs to be reported. And, you know, I hear on all this other stuff. Anything and everything you do is documented. And plus the fact of surveillance and everything else. So you see why things have got to change. If everything is going to be taken down, remember the one thing that it said in there, that this can be done and utilized to tear down and build a private utopia for the elite, which is what they're doing against us, or it can be used as a public utopia. In other words, the rule book of how to tear everything down and rebuild again. You don't think Trump et al. Knows about this if this has been in a book forever? I assure you they do, and I utilize the word they. The video yesterday was talking about a new type of D-Day. They're talking about doing a silent war against us. Well, the war is raging and the silence is going on just as powerfully on the other end. Watch the video I did yesterday about the new type of D-Day if you don't know what I mean. There's other things that have been happening. I was going to add to it. This isn't meant to scare you. This is meant to give you situational awareness. Situational awareness. When we finally get to the point where we do not dissent, we do not give or consent, excuse me. We don't say, okay, we'll just continue doing this. Remember Rosa Parks, when they told her to move to the back of the bus because that's where she was supposed to be. She just said, no, no. Stand your ground. That's where we're headed. And until enough people realize that and do this all at once, I have a feeling the pain's going to continue because this is what it's going to take. Not only that, but an act from God, a miracle. And then keep getting hints that that is something that's going to be coming along. Well, thank God, because not everyone has the strength to stand their ground. But all of us that do, when we finally get to the point that we're not going to be manipulated any longer, and that we have the right and the ability to do our own lives, and we have a society where we can buy and sell however we choose, within fairness and honesty and compassion and helping each other medically by the natural resources that we have, that for some reason we are made to feel like idiots because we decide to use what God gave us. Putting our family together, we're made to look like we're nuts if we don't agree to multiple, I don't know, male, female, cat, dog, whatever you identify with. It's not going to get better, folks. And until you finally get to the point of saying no, even if you are in very difficult situations, that I'm not talking about violent uprising. Look at the history of what happened in India. During the middle of World War II, when the whole world was blowing up and things were absolutely crazy, especially Nazi Germany, India, who had various different factions that had been enemies to each other for a very long time, grouped together non-violently with civil disobedience against London, against England, and said, no, no more. You don't rule us anymore. We rule ourselves. And they just stood their ground. They didn't start a war and start shooting. They just said, no. This is where Martin Luther King Jr. came up with everything that he was using during the 50s, and how Rosa Parks was inspired to do what she was. No, I'm not going to do it anymore. What is it about the word no you don't understand? Something, I mean, that's something I use to my kids quite a bit. Now is the time to bring it out again. Just know that there are so many things that we are told how to think, how to look, what is considered right and wrong, even though we know inside of us what is right or wrong. And told to put all of that aside and do what we're told. To death. To death. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here just for a minute so I can go ahead and bring on a couple other things I was going to show you to remind you that there are good things happening behind the scenes. Okay, I'm going to bring to you here a recording that was strangely suppressed when it happened. A lot of people didn't even see it, didn't even know about it, along with multiple other things that happened during the time of Kim Jong-un. The parades that happened and etc., they were all suppressed. Most people didn't even hear about it. Now they have it out there, interestingly enough. Remember about all the fear mongering of if Trump is elected president, we're going to be in World War III. We're going to have a nuclear war. You don't want to give this guy the codes to, nuclear weapons. He's going to be out there with Kim Jong-un. He's going to talk to this guy. The guy's a loose cannon, and so on. Well, remember just before this, so it's about 3-4 months before that, no, 5 months before that, a certain letter of the alphabet had come out. And if any of you remember this, like I do, there were like some strange pictures that were coming out that didn't make any sense. They were just there. You remember that? And asking, well, what this is out the airplane window, what is that below? And just bringing up little crumbs of information that made absolutely no sense. But as you continued to move forward and move forward and move forward and move forward, suddenly a picture started to evolve as you heard other things that were going on behind the scenes. And by the time that it came for President Trump to meet with Kim Jong-un in Singapore, most of us already knew what was going to happen. I did. It had all been laid out for us without telling us a thing. It was a matter of taking the time to look at the little pictures of the puzzle. And if anyone uses any kind of deductive reasoning, those pictures of the puzzle were taken long before they actually met in Singapore. But interestingly enough, what they showed was what the world saw when they were in Singapore and Kim Jong-un was there. There was like, interestingly enough, almost like a movie. Kim Jong-un, who was supposedly meeting President Trump for the very first time, was out of his country for, I think this is the first time he was ever in Singapore and had any kind of a taste of freedom, was out the night before having the time of his life. You think he would have been maybe worried for his life, or maybe preparing for this huge meeting with the President of the United States the next day? Again, deductive reasoning. Use your gut instincts, your observational objectivity on what's going on. Now, when I play this clip, watch how much Trump treats Kim Jong-un like a son, and kind of almost comforting him, like it's going to be okay, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. Just remind yourself.
I've never expected to meet you at this place. You feel Excellency, take this a step forward. You're the first U.S. president to cross the border.
Off the side.
근데 사상 처음으로 우리 땅을 밟은 미국 대통령이 되셨습니다.
President Trump has just walked across the demarcation line that made him the first U.S. president to visit our country.
이 행동 자체만 보시지 말고 이 트럼프 대통령께서 분리선을 넘어서 가신 거는 다시 말하면 좋지 않은 그 과거를 청산하고 앞으로 좋은 앞날을 개척하려는 트럼프 대통령이 그 남다른 용단의 그 분별이 있다고 생각합니다.
I believe, just looking at this action, this is an expression of his willingness to eliminate all the unfortunate past and open a new future.
I just want to say that this is my honor. I didn't really expect it. We were in Japan for the G20. We came over and I said, hey, I'm over here. I want to call up Chairman Kim. And we got to meet, and stepping across that line was a great honor. A lot of progress has been made. A lot of friendships have been made, and this has been in particular a great friendship. So I just want to thank you. That was very quick notice, and I want to thank you.
Okay. Stop sharing here. Now, North and South Korea, the Korean War had been going on, not as bad as it was beginning, but it's still been going on for like, what, 50 years? And the, oh, I can't think of the name, the zone, demilitarized zone that they were meeting on, I mean, that was about as historic as anything you could ever even begin to imagine. That was so huge. Meeting with Kim Jong-un like that. Well, not only that, Kim Jong-un also met with South Korea's president at the time, and so did Trump. So we were going to show that in a few minutes, but all the drama and everything that led up to it, those of us that were paying attention knew what was going to happen, even though the TV showed all kinds of drama. Well, it's interesting, after all this happened, even after North and South, got together and they met. Actually, I'm not going to show the video because this is getting a little longer than I intended, but you can look that up and you can see what's happening. Now, this was after Trump had, remember the other movie I showed you yesterday? We had gone to Saudi, gone to Israel, had gone to Rome to see the Pope, gone to Germany, went to France, and besides going over to Japan, along with North and South Korea and all these other places. And what was interesting, after each place he went to, and you saw some of the stuff that was happening, who was on his tail trying to undo everything? Until it finally got to the point that, at least with Kim Jong-un, he couldn't do anything, and he didn't. So my point is, you've seen proofs right here that there are meetings with various different parts of the different countries that have been under a type of stranglehold, probably even many times in worse cases than us, especially ones that are under a communist order right now and everything else, that I really believe there is a silent D-Day coming of an undetermined time, but it is very much, in my personal opinion, going to happen. And as you see things ramp up, and they will ramp up because they're not going to go quietly. I mean, if you were in their shoes, would you? Having all the power that you had for such a long time and all this hard work and years and everything else, trying to get these sheep in order, about ready to harvest. Yeah, they're going to be kicking and screaming big time. This is where it is absolutely critical that we come together, folks. Stop it with all the division. Stop it with sowing seeds of dissension. Stop trying to get your own little sense of power by having it or lording it over somebody else for whatever reason, and come together, because we are all the sheep that is being groomed for takedown. And if you haven't picked up on that yet, then you're just not paying attention. The individuals with situational awareness need to come together. I did want to show you one little thing. Okay, this is on the C-Vine website. That's c-vine.com, c-vine.com. Again, we're a charitable trust that was actually put together for we the people, in other words, you guys. And we have many volunteers, in other words, you guys, that all come together to help vet the news. And we go everywhere to find what we can, find out what's true and what's not. Okay, one of the articles that came out yesterday, was not only from the Gateway Pundit, but also Fox News came out with something similar. So we combined it together in this particular report. So if you want to go on to the website to actually watch the video, it is really very, very good. But part of the report pretty much explains exactly what it was. A group of highly trained US military veterans have been conducting secret rescue missions behind the Biden State Department's back, rescuing hundreds of Afghan allies from Afghanistan with their heroic efforts. It was called Operation Pineapple Express. Furious over the terrible situation they already had sacrificed so much to prevent, when they served, the team of retired specialists, including Green Berets and Navy SEALs, risked their lives. They volunteered to travel to Kabul because they were afraid that if Joe Biden was abandoning at-risk Afghan elite forces, leaving them to die at the hands of terrorists, we did what we should do as Americans, he said. I just want to get my people out. Major Jim Grant, a retired Green Beret, also told ABC the operation started about a week ago and was called Pineapple Express. I mean, you go down here and there are multiple people that come right out with their names as retired veterans who all came together, and they went in to rescue Americans and the Afghan allies that they knew who it was to get this going. Now, this is the video from Fox News.
Some veterans now organizing to help those in Afghanistan in any way they can. Among those, founder and president of New York City Veterans Alliance, Kristen Rouse. She has served in the U.S. Army, the U.S. Army Reserve, and the U.S. Army's National Guard for more than 23 years. She has been in Afghanistan in 2006, 2010, and 2012, and for a combined 31 months serving this nation. Kristen, my hat's off to you. Thank you for your service to this nation. You're continuing to do that right now. You've been assisting countless Americans and Afghan allies. Tell us where does it stand? What's the latest with what you've been doing?
Well, thank you for having me. I am just one of thousands of veterans who are working round the clock right now to help our Afghan allies, the interpreters who served with us, the Afghans who worked in other government agencies, the people that we relied on to be able to do our mission. For example, I've been working the case of my own personal interpreter. I served with him for 9 months in 2010. He wore the same uniform that I did. We worked side by side. He was who enabled me to do my mission of partnering with the Afghan army. And without him, I could not have called my work remotely a success. And I've been working with him for more than 10 years to get through an extremely complicated visa process for interpreters. There's a lot of barriers that are built into that process that so many are not able to overcome. And we have been trying for days now to keep moving him to safe places. He has been under threat. He has four young children and a wife. And he's been trying to keep them safe, and we have made attempt after attempt after attempt to get him into the airport, and it has just been really an absolute failure, where you have veterans and service members outside of Afghanistan who are working desperately through all government channels, through back channels, through people we know, just trying to pull some strings, pull some levers, get their information, and say, this person is important to me. This person is who I depended on. They have to live. They have to live.
Kristen, I understand. He kept you alive. Now his life is in your hands and you are doing everything you can. Thank you for doing that. We have run out of time in this hour. You can go to her website there.
Okay. So you can see what I'm talking about. This is what's going on. It's like if certain administrations that is supposed to be protecting us isn't doing their job, there are veterans out there that's like, okay, we've got to save these people. We can't just let them be slaughtered. Interestingly enough, America's frontline doctors that that dedicated their entire lives to studying to be able to help people, to do no harm. And they're noticing some things that are going on. They're putting their entire careers on the line to be able to save people. What does that tell you? What does it say when you are actually looking eyes on? And now it's not just one or two, it's more and more and more and more and more physicians are coming forward that have taken the time not to just listen to what somebody else says and do some of their own investigating. Lives are being saved. And how many have been lost because we've been indoctrinated to listen to what schools and agencies and everything else tell us without using our own minds. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today. If you like to discuss more things like this about situational awareness and what exactly we can do peacefully and ways to go about it, let me know down in the comments. I would love to know your thoughts. If you like these videos, please like them, subscribe if you're not a member, and go to c-find.com website every single day. Have a good day, everybody.